Oh boy, internet, I sure love the holiday season. Seeing family, making uncomfortable dinners by talking about politics. And oh yes, that's what we're gonna talk about today. Politics. You know, people seem to think I have very conflicting or strange opinions on politics because I say things like genocide is bad, or perhaps, communism was a bad idea. And I say these things, and people get mad. And they say, whoa. Karl Marx had the right idea. Joseph Stalin was the real bad guy. Guys, I'm sorry, the Communist Manifesto is just famine with extra steps. I'm just calling it as I sees it. With my opinions on politics, I also don't like people like Prager University.
Do you believe that good and evil exist? The answer to this question separates Judeo-Christian values from secular values.
Ah, yes. That wonderful man on screen is not Colonel Sanders, but is in fact Dennis Prager. Who is Dennis Prager, you ask? And if you thought a college professor, you'd be wrong. Saying that Dennis Prager would be qualified to talk about these issues would be hilarious, because he's not. Dennis Prager is actually a Christian radio talk show host, so essentially like Alex Jones Light. Now you might be wondering, well, why is a university something you are targeting, Diesel? This makes no sense. Well, that's because PragerU's not a university. It is in fact just right-leaning BuzzFeed. Yes, that's right. This is the BuzzFeed for your shitty ex-boyfriend or your father. But don't worry, you're still gonna make bad choices. That's right, I'm talking to you. Basically, PragerU makes 5-minute, easy-to-digest videos for anybody right of center, essentially reaffirming their points and creating an echo chamber of ideas. Yeah, wow, what a fucking surprise in the year 2018. But by this time, all of my NPC right-leaning viewers will have pretty much fucked off, so let me explain to you what my kind of political leanings are. I'm a libertarian, so basically, I lie on the conservative side. I believe in freedom and freedom and freedom. I like freedom. I know it makes me sound like Ron Swanson, but I'm really fucking serious about that. Also, legalize recreational cocaine and miniguns to protect my house, but that's neither here nor there. But yes, Prager creates really funny arguments, things that I go, You see, PragerU is very Christian. They are very believing in of God. Now me, I went to a Catholic school for a very long period of my life. My entire childhood was essentially just going to Catholic school. I also grew up in a Catholic household. So, after the 5th time of getting beaten with a ruler by a nun, I denounced God and finally decided to worship the Lord and Savior himself, Satan. I also developed a really strange and specific fetish. Nuns, man, I tell ya. Crazy. But they hold really strange beliefs on the platform, and they also have a ridiculous marketing budget, so of course you see their ads before every video that you watch on YouTube, including my own. So this is my video to first of all warn my viewers not to drink the fucking Kool-Aid of PragerU. Also, don't drink the Kool-Aid of BuzzFeed, but that's not who we're talking about today. So today, we're gonna look at some PragerU videos, and we're gonna basically yeet them out into the great pasture. What the fuck is this, an FPS Diesel talking about politics? I can't talk about politics. Chris Ray Gun already does that. He's Puerto Rican and wears glasses and talks about politics. You can't have another one of those. Everybody knows that. God forbid. God forbid. Go fuck yourself. There's nobody in the room with me. I'm talking to myself. So, the first video we're going to look at is titled, If There Is No God, Murder Isn't Wrong. Yep.
Let me offer the clearest possible example. Murder. Is murder wrong? Is it evil? Nearly everyone would answer yes, but now I will pose a much harder question. How do you know? I'm sure you think murder is wrong, but how do you know?
So basically what this whole video is going to get into, that is, if there is no Judeo-Christian God, then the ideas of good and evil are simply relative, and by that logic, don't really exist. So murder really isn't a problem. Without Judeo-Christian God, who knows what could happen? Basically, that secular world or some other religion, Muslims, would basically be committing mass murder. I'm not joking, he even uses Nazis and communists as being secular societies that committed mass murder.
Many will argue that you don't need moral absolutes. People won't murder because they don't want to be murdered. But that argument is just wishful thinking. Hitler, Stalin, and Mao didn't want to be murdered, but that hardly stopped them from murdering about 100 million people.
It's totally not that they were ran by fucking crazy people. No, it's totally because they didn't have religion. You know, thank Jesus for the Bible. You know, because without the Bible, I would be committing so many acts of sin. Like if I didn't read the Bible, I wouldn't know that I should be stoning my gay slaves who like to eat shellfish and wear tattoos, using my child soldiers for my crusades.
It is also not a coincidence that the first societies in the world to abolish slavery, an institution that existed in every known society in human history, were Western societies rooted in Judeo-Christian values. And so were the first societies to affirm universal human rights, to emancipate women, and to proclaim the value of liberty.
All right, Dennis Prager, so let me explain something to you, right? Judaism and Christianity are pretty new religions on terms of humanity and the global scale. They've been around for a while, I will say that. But there are societies completely separate from those that developed religions and rules against murder. This would be implying that the entirety of society was developed where Judaism and Christianity existed, because before that, people just murdered each other, right? And this is looking at it from a historical perspective, right? If you say, oh, well, religion, God just did it and we just didn't recognize it beforehand, sure. I guess nobody can really prove that wrong, but nobody can really prove it right either. As you say, there can only be opinions. But let's get into the historical aspect of it and how these religions are and how they're developed, right? So basically, I'm monkey. No, but seriously, Hinduism could be argued it was the oldest religion ever invented, right? Basically invented around 23,000 BC, give or take. Now, the same thing is argued for Judaism around pretty much the same time. Now, it could be argued which one's older or younger, like, it's up for debate. But I can say this, that they developed independently of each other in their own environments. Oh, now what does this mean? This means that if Hinduism developed the idea that murder is wrong, then it was completely independent of Judaism. And the Jews didn't have a hand in it. Honestly, this Dennis Prager video just kind of furthers the whole argument that the Jews have like some New World Order thing going on. Anyway, essentially in Hinduism, they have this idea. Don't ask me to say it, I don't want to butcher it, but it sounds like it's spelled. I'll say that. Basically, this entire principle says non-violence to all living things. Now, there is stipulations to these rules, such as poisoning, arson, murder, robbery with violence, appropriating land, and kidnapping women. So there's stipulations, but there's also stipulations in the Bible for why we can't or cannot kill people. But it wasn't just these religions at this time that developed the ideas such as, maybe you shouldn't murder people, right? The ancient Greeks, who were polytheistic, right, believed that murder was wrong. There were certain rites and ways of dealing with death and murder. For example, in Greek society, if you got into battle with an enemy, you had to bury the body afterwards because the human body was something that the gods made, and you have to respect that, right? So obviously the ancient Greeks had laws against rape, they had laws against murder, and these were developed from their religious pastimes and their rituals and all of that. So, like, you could murder someone who's not of your own blood, but you can't murder your mother or your brother because you're related by blood. There's actually a really famous story about this, right? With, so Agamemnon, here's a history lesson, guys. Agamemnon was one of the great warriors in the Trojan War. I think he was a general. Anyway, he had a son named Orestes, right? Now, Orestes killed his mother, right? And that was considered a serious offense by the gods. So the gods sent the Furies after Orestes. Essentially, the Furies would rip Orestes to shreds. They'd kill him. Point of the matter here is, not only in their religious texts do they say, hey, murder's wrong, their playwrights, they all have this oral story of why you can't murder people.
But how do you know? If I asked you how you know that the Earth is round, you would show me photographs from outer space or offer me measurable data. But what photographs could you show? What measurements could you provide that prove that murder or rape or theft is wrong? The fact is, you can't. There are scientific facts, but without God, there are no moral facts.
How do I know murder is wrong? Well, this is a really chicken and egg kind of argument, because you could argue that it developed evolutionary because humans are pack animals, or you could say that God put it into our minds, which allowed it to develop over thousands of years, which allowed it to be evolutionary. But then I'm making an argument for you. It's hard to say. I can't answer that question because there is no answer to that question. How do I know murder is wrong? I just know. That's it. People who murder people know murder is wrong, but they still commit murder. They could grow up with or without secular values. They could grow up in a society completely devoid of that religion. But like, you can't prove it either one way or the other. Anyway, enough about religious and religion things, because religion will come up again later, because PragerU doesn't know how to source anything else aside from the Bible. Anyway, PragerU makes a lot of these absolute statements in their videos. Essentially, they make claims in their videos that cannot be proven, period, and they state it as fact, right? Like, I can't source that or cite that or check to see if it's accurate or not. Like, what? Like, there's a video where a woman, right? She says, all women want a man who is brave, caring, and a caretaker or something like that. Well, like, what if someone don't? What if someone don't want that? You ever think of that? And then they say, well, I'm speaking in generalities, as if it's like they get a get out jail free card. Like, are you serious? I'm sorry, but some of these are just like your opinion, man. Like, why are you pointing it off as fact to these people? Like, you and I both know that your audience, and hell, even my audience, they're gonna take whatever opinion you give them. I'm just trying to say, if you watch content online, be like critical of it and develop your own thoughts. But then I go into comments to this PragerU video and being like, yeah, that's what women want. The women that don't want that are like butch lesbians. It's like, do you get laid? Do you know what women look like in real life? Fucking weirdo. Let's talk about the feminism stuff, right? Because, you know, I'm not a feminist. It's not really issues I particularly care to support. On top of that, I think the whole idea of a guy coming out and being like, I'm a feminist and I support women. It's like, oh, you know what you want? To get laid because you're fat and have shitty beard hair. That's what it's like. That's what I always see. And then they always end up being like child fiddlers. But there's a video here, and it's titled, Who Needs Feminism? Which, I mean, that's a really cringy title already, but the guy in the video, here's what he says.
I am an anti-feminist.
Oh, you're an anti-feminist. Calm down, Elliot Rodgers' dad, aka Mr. Clean.
Feminism is a mean-spirited, small-minded, and oppressive philosophy that can poison relations between the sexes.
And I get it. Modern feminism is really stupid, because instead of trying to protect or get equal rights for women in countries where they get stoned for not wearing a head hijab, instead you want to focus on things like yelling at Blizzard because Widowmaker's ass crack is too deep. Yeah, guys, I'm sure people are gonna be felt like they're just not represented well in Blizzard, in a game where a hamster drives a transformer to fight a monkey who went into space that is also a scientist. Yeah, we gotta have realistic body proportions, guys. Are you fucking kidding me? Jesus Christ. Anyway, this man in the video is arguing that feminism is turning first-rate women into second-rate men by making them do things like focus on their career. Yeah, but can you prove any of this is my only fucking complaint. Like, if you're a woman and you want to play basketball, well, first of all, honey, that's your funeral. They're like 200 pounds, and they're suffering from so much brain trauma that they won't make it past 40. But if you want to go do that instead of do ballet, where you probably won't get brain trauma, go right ahead. You know, I get intense schadenfreude from people hurting themselves. So knock yourself out. If you want to do something your body is not capable of doing, because biologically, guys, anatomically, we are different. I've proved this before with the Elon Musk video. Unfortunately, biologically, our bone structures are different. But if you want to do it, that's your fucking God-given right. Go do it. This guy wants you to not do that.
These structures became increasingly ritualistic and oppressive for women. But the opposite happened in the Christian West. Why? Take a look at your Bible. Proverbs 31.
Oh, the opposite thing happened in the Christian West? Really? Well, okay, actually, he's not totally wrong, but like, they really they couldn't be a knight. They couldn't do whatever they wanted, but there were rules in place, and how well those were protected is kind of like up in the air, and it depends on where you are. In fact, there's so many rules and stipulations as for what women can and cannot do in the Middle Ages, right? It's like reading the D&D handbook. Women could be artisans, women could be cooks, women could be nuns, women could be church leaders, right? Women could be queens, they could have roles in politics, or they could be peasants. The majority of them were peasants, and not even male peasants had a lot of control over what happened. But then he argues that codes like chivalry were made to protect women, which is not the case. Chivalry has a lot of rules in it, and one of those is that you can't do that to women. Now, whether or not the knights in occupying cities actually held up those rules is a matter for debate. But let's also note that chivalry had wonderful things, like you couldn't stab someone in the back. Literally, you can't stab someone in the back. So the video kind of really goes off the rails when he brings up the whole Bible shit. That's like, you don't really need this to prove your point. Like, you're just kind of putting it in there because it's like a requirement for your videos. And you don't need it. Like, you're not wrong. Women did have a role to play in middle-aged society. But the point of the matter here is how often they are allowed to deviate from their social norms. A woman was much less likely to deviate from their social norms in the Middle Ages than they are today. Now, I don't think you can force that on people. It has to happen naturally so people don't fucking hate each other. So he ends the whole video by saying, you know, God gave you the right to do whatever you want as a woman. Which, I mean, okay, God aside, who cares? Yeah, you're allowed to do whatever you want. But then he's like, yeah, well, you know, men made that possible. And I'm like,
none of this is a reason to attack men. In fact, these new opportunities are largely the result of men's inventions and their ideas. And none of it requires women to abandon the femininity which is one of the graces of our world.
look, if I was going to make an argument like he's making right now, I'd say we don't need feminism today because we live in a first world Western society. Women are allowed to do whatever they want. They can do what they want. They might not be the best at it, but they can fucking God sure try. You don't need to say, whoa, guys, I'm an anti-feminist, and God said women are equal to men. The point of this whole video is really for me to not bash religion, right? I mean, yeah, I like making jokes about it, knock yourself out, that's what happens when you experience that in your life. But it's rather to try and impart on you the importance of coming to your own conclusions. If someone brings up an argument, go research it if you care. I know plenty of people who are having to debate about something like gun violence, and they don't know any statistics about it. You know, I know people who are devout Christians, and they don't read the Bible at all. They just are, right? And then I have friends who are, and, you know, they are able to develop their own thoughts and ideas and feelings about these topics, and they need that. We need that. That's my point with this video. I don't like PragerU because they're feeding you easily digestible, just simple videos that explain the world, and it's not really explaining shit. What I want for you is to be someone who actually can get critical thinking and come up with their own opinions on these issues, right? I'm not asking you to agree with me in this video. I don't care. But you need to actually look at these videos and then say, okay, what are they thinking about? And I understand with topics like feminism, it's really hard to find a non-biased paper about the gender wage gap. But like, actually go across the fence to the men that are talking about what about my issues and find out where they're sourcing their information from. So maybe you could get a better understanding on the whole overarching like debate. Anyway, that being said, PragerU is politics for people who don't read. My name's FPS Diesel. I have a Harvard degree, and go fuck yourself.